Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, ciao, bonjour, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hey, my name is Jedley. Welcome to Reading with Your Kids. We are coming to you from the beautiful, wonderful, historical neighborhood of Reedville, located in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so delighted and so honored that you're joining us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. We do that by sharing fun, thoughtful, and thought-provoking conversations with fascinating people who just happen to be writing books for kids of all ages. You can join us in that mission by telling all of your family and friends about the show and letting them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network. And they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Good Pods, Podcast Addict, Audible, CastBox, Player FM, Boomplay, Ghana, wherever you find your favorite shows. Two wonderful guests for you today. Ruth Spiro returns to the show to celebrate One Small Spark, a Tikkun Olam Story. And later in the show, we meet the author of A Tree for Me, Carole Gerber. This episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by 28 Days of Neon by Mayra Rosenberg. 12-year-old Neon Blue Green is queen of the cafeteria, co-captain of the cheerleading squad, and has the most amazing dog any 7th grader could ask for. Her only complaint in life is that her parents named her after the color of a sports energy drink. Until the morning she overhears them whispering and learns that she has only 28 days left to live. Neon needs a miracle, but how can she get one in only 28 days? Then it hits her. She'll do one good deed every day. This is a fascinating middle grade novel that you and your kids are going to love to read or co-read together. Get your copy today, 28 Days of Neon by Mayra Rosenberg. This episode is brought to you by Feliz Navidad. It's December of 2019, and Pittsburgh is covered in a terrible fog. Even worse, all of the reindeer get sick and they can't fly. Everyone in the North Pole is worried they'll have to cancel Christmas. But just when all hope seems lost, Santa's pet, Feliz Navidad, raises his paw to help. And while a dog is not quite a reindeer, Feliz is their last chance to save Christmas. This is a book about perseverance and grit. Feliz Navidad, the story of how Santa's dog saved Christmas. Get your copy today, Feliz Navidad, by Ari and Rhea Helper. Hey, want to let you know that we have a brand new Reading with Your Kids certified great read, Mulu and Nanu, a story about a special bond between a baby and his grandfather, written by Tippy Bond. This is a heartwarming children's book that celebrates the precious connection between grandparents and grandchildren. This delightful story captures the gentle, playful, and loving bond between little Mulu, an energetic baby, and his beloved grandfather, Nanu. The book begins with Mulu, a charmingly self-assured 8-month-old, setting off to visit his grandparents, his heart brimming with excitement to see his favorite person, Nanu. The story flows through small moments that encapsulate Mulu's fascinating with his grandfather. From the simple joy of a blue and yellow car seat to the eager anticipation of Nanu's hugs and kisses. Tippy Bond's narration beautifully portrays a child's world filled with wonder and affection, highlighting the innocence and purity of Mulu's feelings for his grandfather. This really is a wonderful book. Our panel absolutely adored it, gave it 5 stars. We think you will too. You can read the entire review on our website, readingwithyourkids.com. Congratulations to Tippy Bond. Mulu and Nanu is our latest certified great read. This episode is brought to you by the Logan series. 3 wonderful books written by Christine Ritchie McNamee. Logan and the Missing Masterpiece, Logan and the Lost Luggage, Logan and the Missing Jewels. Logan and the Lost Luggage is a Reading with Your Kids certified great read, and all 3 of these books feature Logan, an adorable Cocker Spaniel who travels the world with his magic phone. You and your kids are going to love traveling around the world with Logan, meeting animals from all over the world, visiting different countries, and learning how to get along with people from other countries and other cultures. It's a beautiful series of books. Our Reading with Your Kids Certified Great Read panel loved Logan and the Last Luggage. We know you're going to love all three books. Check it out today. The Logan series by Christine Ricci McNamee. Join us right now from the beautiful Chicagoland area in Illinois. Our guest is here today, returning to the show to celebrate a brand new book. It's called One Small Spark, a Tikkun Olam Story. Please welcome back to the show, Ruth Spiro. Hey, Ruth, how are you?
Good morning. How are you? I'm fine today. Doing great.
Wonderful. It's a little cold here in Boston. I just returned from 2 weeks in Scotland and Ireland, and we really had some great weather over there. It only rained a little bit, and we didn't really get wet at all, and it was a beautiful, beautiful time.
You know, that's interesting. I was just in Ireland in June and expected it to be cloudy and raining the whole time. And it was actually in the 70s and sunny, and it was gorgeous. We had one rainy day and that was it. Yeah. So it was absolutely gorgeous. I mean, we actually got to see the Cliffs of Moher, which are usually fogged in, and it was like sunny and blue skies. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
So yeah.
We were there 2 days ago, the Cliffs of Moher.
Oh, lovely, lovely. Yes.
Yeah. It was really funny. So they have the paved path. I don't know if you went all the way up to the top of the paved path. And then all of a sudden they have there's a path that extends beyond. It's very, very narrow, and it's dirt. And there's just this big, ginormous yellow sign that says, "Do not walk past here. It's dangerous. You will die. You will fall to your death." And no barrier preventing people from going there. And it's
right.
like, okay, this is just to get people to go there, right? We don't want
right.
to that thing.
Yeah, no, we didn't go there. We just stayed on the paved path, and it was fine with me.
Awesome. Well, we did go down there, and it was a lot of walk for a very similar view to what we had back when
okay.
it was
So I didn't miss too much. Okay.
So tell us about your new book.
So my new book, it's called One Small Spark, a Tikkun Olam Story, and it is published by Dial, and it's illustrated by Victoria Tentler Kryloff. And I always have to mention the illustrator's name because, gosh, she did such an amazing job with the art, and it's incredible. Her work is incredible. And what she added to my text was just, it just took it, 10 steps above where it was. So, but anyway, so One Small Spark, it's about a concept in Judaism called Tikkun Olam, which loosely translates to repair the world or make right. But the interesting thing is that even though this is a story that's told through a Jewish lens, it's really a concept that is common to all, value systems and religions and faith groups. It's do unto others and be a good part of your community and, charity and community service and all that. So the story itself does not really focus on the Jewish aspect. It focuses on the personal aspect. And then I explain a little bit more about the concept in an author's note at the end, because I really wanted it to be a book that anyone could read and that any family would feel comfortable bringing into their home and sharing with their children or into a classroom. It's not like a religious book. It's just based on this value that has been very important to me throughout my life and that I've tried to impart on my children, and that I just felt like I wanted to write about and share with my readers.
I'm really happy that you brought that up. One of the things that I used to do in my educational magic show and still do from time to time, is just bring up this concept of the golden rule. And sometimes when you use that phrase, people get very, especially in public schools, get very worried and get very upset. Oh, you can't bring this in. And my whole thing, and the reason for my bringing it up is I typically am asked to go to a school to use my magic to encourage kids to build a bully-free community and a culture of respect. And that concept of doing unto others as you would have them to do to you, that is found in so many different faith traditions and cultures all over the world that, unlike today where you can just pick up the phone and call somebody on the other side of the world, or as you and I did, travel to the other side of an ocean in just a few hours, this is at a time when these cultures had zero contact with each other. But despite that, this truth that we should be caring for one another and treating others the way we want them to treat us, it sprang up. And whether you believe it was divinely inspired or just people kind of figured it out, it's a beautiful concept. And I really think that that's kind of where we should start, is like, celebrate our differences, celebrate diversity, absolutely. But let's also celebrate the fact that we have so much in common, including this notion that the best way to live life is by being kind and respectful to others.
That's exactly where I'm coming from with this, is that we find many ways to divide ourselves based on different factors. But when you take it down just to the human level, we have so much in common, right? You know, we're parents, it's just, there's so much that we share that's common, that sometimes it's a matter of just focusing on the ideas that we do share in common. And you're right, this is something, it's a human value. It's not related to any particular one religion. And like you said, it's across the world, and it's across all barriers. And I also really wanted to look at the idea of personal responsibility, and how no matter what's going on around you, you have the agency and you are in charge of how you respond and how you react. So if a child sees someone in their classroom who has fallen down, you know, in that moment, you decide who you are and who you want to be. And you decide, am I going to go help this person, or am I going to go with my friends and keep walking by? And similarly, you know, in this book, the little girl, she sees a swing that's broken in the park, and there's a child that wants to go on the swing, and obviously she can't. And in that moment, she made the decision to walk over and think about how she can help fix this swing. And sometimes the problem is very small and it's something you can easily address, and sometimes you need help, and it's okay to ask for help. And sometimes when, you know, you do one kind thing or you do one small thing, it leads to another and another and another. And it's not just about like doing something, you know, like to repair the world. It's about that one-to-one relationship with another person. You know, what will you say to them that is kind or comforting? Excuse me. I really wanted to take it down to that personal level, and show kids that you know, they don't have a lot of control in their lives, right? Like kids, they are told what time to go to bed, and that they have to brush their teeth, and they have to go to school and all that. But there are certain things that they do have control over, and that is how they respond and how they react to certain situations and how they interact with their peers and with people in their community. And, you know, what will you do? It's a big responsibility when you have that option and that control, and what will you do with that, and how will you use your ability like that to make small changes in the world? Because when you talk about like repairing the world, that sounds like impossible, right? I mean, how am I as one person going to repair the whole world? But what I can do is that one little thing that might make the world better for one person, or might change one little thing. And that was really what I wanted to focus on, that one little thing that we can all do as we're walking through our day, just to be aware, you know, of what we can do to be helpful.
Yeah. That's a really great message. You know, I think sometimes people think we have to repair the world that someone's going to come along like a magician with a magic wand and just wave it and everything is going to be fixed instantaneously. And we know whether it's, rebuilding a home or rehabilitating from an injury, it's little steps, step by step. And I think this is a great message to give to kids, that we can help repair the world by small, simple acts of kindness.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And also I thought is important too is we don't always need to make a big deal about it, right? Mm-hmm. We can do it under the radar. We're not always going to get a thank you for the things that we do. And that's okay, because we know what we've done, right? We just the satisfaction of knowing that we did something to help somebody else, that's its own reward right there. We're not always going to get a trophy for everything that we do, right? But it's doing the right thing, not because you're told to do it, but because that's what your heart is telling you to do.
Yeah. What would you say if there's a person listening to this, or a person who walks into the bookstore and picks up your book and is like intrigued by it? I like this message, but it got this religious connection and I don't have a faith tradition, or this isn't my faith tradition, so forget about it.
What I would say is, number one, there is not a heavy religious content at all in the book. In fact, the phrase Tikkun Olam is not mentioned until the very last page of the book. There's an author's note at the end because, like I said, I really wanted this to be a book that any parent would feel comfortable bringing into their home, no matter what they practice or don't. And I also wanted it to be appropriate for classroom use, because it's about building a community in the classroom as well. And I would also say it's nice to learn about people who are different than you are. And I think it's important to have that understanding. There are, I go on a lot of school visits and conferences, and I travel, and there are a lot of places I go where people have never met a Jewish person before. Mm-hmm. And I think the only way that we're going to solve the larger problems that we have is by getting to know one another and asking questions and understanding where people come from and understanding what's important to them. So I think if this is not the religion that you practice, that's fine, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with learning. You're not even going to learn about the religion of Judaism. It's really just learning about one value that I promise you will find something to connect with, because again, it's a human value. It has nothing to do with just the religion itself. It's just something that I have always, practiced in my home and with my children. And it seemed like a really great topic to write a children's book about.
Well, I agree with you. We celebrate the fact that books can be mirrors, windows, and sliding glass doors. And again, going back to what I said earlier is, we are different. And a book being a window to let us see differences and see that people have different languages and different cultures. They eat different foods. But also, I think it's so very, very important for us to sit down with our kids and look through that window and say, wow, but they share something that's so important, so fundamental with us.
Exactly. And that in itself is its own little act of working to repair the world, isn't it?
Yes.
Right? By learning about somebody who is different than you are and trying to understand them. That is a tiny little step that we can take to put our world in a better place.
Absolutely. You've had such a great career writing for children. What is it? Do you ever take the time to look back and to think about those families that are curled up together reading your books?
Excuse me. I do that all the time, because I see posts on Instagram of kids reading my books, and it never gets old. It just gives me the chills, and to know that a family is reading one of my books at bedtime, or that, a child is taking one of my books into their bed to go to sleep with, or that an educator is sharing my book in their classroom. It never gets old, and it means so much to me to know that my books are being shared and enjoyed by kids, not just here, but all over the world. I mean, some of the Baby Love Science books have been translated into 11 or 12 different languages. Excuse me. It's an amazing feeling. And every time I sit down to write, I remind myself of that. And it's humbling. It really is, to know that, this is the legacy that I'm leaving. And I'm so happy that this new book has become part of that legacy. My previous books are very STEM related. But the interesting thing is that in looking back, I look at like Made by Maxine and excuse me, I'm sorry. My allergies are terrible right now. And Maxine and the Greatest Garden Ever. And those books are also about kindness and about doing something nice for somebody else. And so I think that it's a theme that has been running through my books. And so I decided that I needed to give the topic its own book. But there's nothing more wonderful than just thinking about how my books are in homes and classrooms and libraries. And I remind myself of that every time, because it's important, and it's just such a great feeling. It's hard to describe, even for someone who is very good at using words and describing things.
Is this something, obviously looking back and you're finding great satisfaction being a children's author, is being a children's author something that you would always aspire to do?
No, never. I'm so sorry. A lot of authors will say since they were children, they've always wanted to write books, and it was not something that I had ever thought about. I didn't even know that being an author was a job that you could do. And when I was younger, and I started out, I have a bachelor's degree in communications. I worked in advertising, and then I went back to school and got an MBA, and I worked in business and large scale research projects. And it wasn't until I was home with my two young daughters that I decided to take a class in writing for children at our local community college. And turned out that I discovered that I enjoyed it, and I had a lot to say. And so it's the second career for me, and it's been extremely rewarding. And I'm so glad that I took that first class.
Great things come out of community colleges.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. What's next for Ruth Spiro?
Well, so some people will know, or some of your listeners will know me for my Baby Love Science series of board books. And we are up to number 25 in that series, which is coming out in March. And that topic is meteorology. So it's all about weather. So it's the 25th book in 2025. So stay tuned for some celebrations that we'll be having for that. And then the spin-off series from that, because those little ones who are reading the board books were getting older, and we had many requests from parents and educators looking for a next step. So we started a new picture book series called How to Explain Science to a Grown-Up. And those are picture books for kids like in kindergarten through third or fourth grade. Uh-huh. And there's 2 of those out already: How to Explain Coding to a Grown-Up and How to Explain Robotics to a Grown-Up just came out. And in March, alongside the meteorology book, we will have How to Explain Climate Science to a Grown-Up. And I'm super excited for that one.
That's wonderful. Well, I'm
Yes.
really excited for you. I'm really excited for all the families that are going to get to snuggle up around those books. So thank you very much for doing that for the world.
Oh, you're very welcome. And I appreciate the opportunity to, have my books in bookstores and homes and schools and classrooms. And like I said, it's very humbling.
Tell us where we can go to find out more about One Small Spark and find out more about you.
My website is ruthspiro.com, and I'm also on Instagram. It's at Ruth Spiro, and my books can be purchased anywhere that books are sold. I love to support independent bookshops, but do what's best for you, or request it at your local library. And they're readily available, and wherever you buy or borrow your books, you'll be able to find them.
I've had a great time speaking to the author of One Small Spark, a Tikkun Olam Story. Our guest has been Ruth Spiro. Hey, Ruth, thanks so much for being back with us.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure.
This episode is brought to you by OnceUponADance.com. Ignite imagination with award-winning dance and movement books. Once Upon a Dance inspires young readers to twirl, leap, and dream with whimsy and wonder. Whether your child enjoys unicorns, bats, zombies, or cats, Once Upon a Dance has a dance-it-out story to get them moving. For more information about this 37 delightful books, please visit OnceUponADance.com or find them on your favorite social media platform. This episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by the books by Charmaine Perry Knights. Charmaine is a TEDx speaker, award-winning facilitator, world traveler, and author. Serving military families through quality literature is her goal and her passion. Her books are absolutely amazing. They are just full of great messages. Books like I'll Find My Way, and That's Okay. I Move a Lot, and That's Okay. And It's Cool to Be Kind. Such great books that you and your kids will absolutely adore. These books deserve to be in your family library. Get them today. The books by Charmaine Perry Knights. They're available today at Amazon. This episode of Reading with Your Kids is brought to you by Snoodles in Space, Episode 2, The Zoodles Strike Back, written by Stephen Joseph and illustrated by Andy Case. In this third installment of the Snoodles series, the Zoodles are determined to have their revenge. With the help of a grimy millionaire who's fallen on hard times, they intend to poison the Earth's water supply and turn everyone into willy-nillys and dilly-dallies. Can Brianna and Ricky save the Earth again? Will the outcast kids on the other side of the track rise to the challenge and help save the world? You can find out with Snoodles in Space, Episode 2, The Zoodles Strike Back. Are you looking for the perfect gift for a young reader? Woofy and the Dinosaur Dig Adventure, the second book in the Woofy series, is an exciting choice that fosters creativity, friendship, and teamwork. Join Woofy, a small gray stuffed dog, on his thrilling quest to help his friends excavate a T-Rex in the mountains. Young readers will enjoy his humorous adventures and admire his skills as a pup paleontologist, all set in a beautifully illustrated lyrical story. Authored by Helen Rogenson, retired award-winning teacher honored with the Presidential Award for Excellence in Math and Science Teaching. This book encourages lifelong learning while supporting charities for animal rescues and children in need. Don't miss out. Visit us at unpackyourownhappy.com and connect with us on Instagram at unpackyourownhappy. Join us right now from the beautiful state of South Carolina. Our guest is here today to celebrate her beautiful picture book. Is called A Tree for Me. Please welcome to the show, Carole Gerber. Hey, Carole, how are you?
I'm good. It's a beautiful day here in South Carolina.
It's a beautiful day here in Boston, too. We have, I think we're coming up on the end of what we used to call Indian summer. I hope that's not offensive to anybody these days. But that time of year where we've already had the frost and cold, but then we just get a week or a week and a half of beautiful, beautiful weather. And then after that, we get hit pretty bad with cold.
Yeah. We don't get so bad with the cold, but we start to get rain and gray skies. So, yeah, I'm appreciating this.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I can't complain about the weather because my beautiful wife and I just returned from a trip to Scotland and Ireland. We were over there for 2 weeks, and leading up to this everybody, including the travel agency, said, well, it's going to rain. You're going to need boots. You're going to need a raincoat. You're going to need all this other stuff. And I think it rained once.
Wow.
And so we've been very blessed with wonderful weather. So we can't complain. And of course, rain is what makes those beautiful trees grow. So we need the rain. We need the rain for the trees to be healthy.
We definitely do.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about A Tree for Me, please.
Well, A Tree for Me is the first book that a publisher ever suggested I write. I've written about 100 work-for-hire books for McGraw-Hill, which was 10 miles from where I lived most of my adult life in Columbus, Ohio. So I have done those kind of books. But I had done 3 other books for Familius, and the publisher knew that I had done other books about trees, which are, can I show them?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay. Leaf Jumpers has been in print for 25 years, which is astonishing.
Yeah.
It's my first book about trees for Charles Bridge Publishing. And it's been a hardback, a paperback, a little back. It's been in a lot of different forms. And I think one reason it's so popular, as are many of my books, is because I use verse to teach nonfiction. And kids love verse. It's easier for them to memorize. I taught one long year, 7th grade. And so I knew that how I got kids to really want to participate was even kids who weren't very good readers, I would find something in verse or something that they would be interested in. And we would have this like little round table of readers. So I don't know if I consciously thought about that with these trees books, but Leaf Jumpers was so popular that the publisher asked me to write another book about trees. These were not works for hire. I did get advance and royalties. And this is Winter Trees, again told in verse about what happens to trees in winter. And the last one, Spring Blossoms, also very well reviewed, and they were smart with the illustrator. They used Leslie Evans, who lives in a suburb of Boston, and Charles Bridge is in Boston, so they knew her, they knew her work, to illustrate all 3 of the books. This New Trees book is by different publishers, so Leslie, unless she looks at my website, knows nothing about this.
So where is obviously you have a deep love and respect for trees and nature. Where does that come from?
Well, I think it came from, this is not a popular topic nowadays, but hunting. My dad was a hunter, and he would let me go with him when I was 7, 8 years old. And I did not carry a gun. He held his gun safely. And he would go hunting for birds and nothing huge that he couldn't carry home. But I would go with him, and we would walk through the woods, and he grew up in the country. So I think I associate being around trees with those very happy childhood memories.
Yeah.
And as an adult in Ohio, Columbus is where I lived before I moved here for my grandchildren. I was a writer all this time doing different things, but I began to volunteer at a farm called Stratford Nature Preserve, a 200-acre farm. And I took school kids, mostly elementary students, on little field trips through the farm. We would feed the fish. We would, touch the bark on the trees. We would pet the cows. Some kids petted the cows. We did not pet them when they were loose. We should walk across the field when they were out there, but they would pet them in the barn. And I did that for several years. I haven't found anything like that down here.
Mm-hmm.
But that certainly supported my interest in nature and sharing it with children.
Yeah. You mentioned that hunting isn't popular these days with certain parts of the population. But I also, I'm not a hunter myself, but I think we have to acknowledge the fact that unless you're a complete vegan,
right,
you're eating an animal, a creature that was alive at one point. And even if you are a vegan, when those farms that grow all the vegan food organically, they need to kill lots of bugs and insects and
right.
to plant those foods. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't worry if somebody is thinking they're holier than thou. Hunting is it's a necessity for us. So and what a beautiful thing to be able to go out and spend time with your dad. It's I started reading with your kids because I know reading is the foundation that my relationship with my now adult kids was built on. And reading with your kids led to cooking with my kids, led to throwing the ball around with my kids and doing all sorts of other things with my kids. And I think anytime you're out with the family, it's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
and one more little thing about my dad that sticks in my mind now that I'm the age that my father was. He also was a fisherman, and he would take me and my little sister, who was just 2 years younger, with him. Very patient with baiting our hooks. And she caught a fish, and it was a big enough fish to eat, and we brought it home. And then she broke down and said, "Daddy, we can't eat this fish. We can't eat this fish." So my dad, I understand he grew up on a farm. He was a country boy. He fought in World War II. He ran semi-warm water in the bathtub, and he put that little fish in there, and he said, "Well, we can't guarantee." I know he knew what was going to happen. But so my sister sort of stood by the tub and got to see the fish die, and then said, "Daddy, I think we need to bury this fish." And I just thought, it's probably because now I'm old, but I think about those childhood memories of family, and it's as distinct as though it happened yesterday, though there's never been a fish in my bathtub. No.
Well, you bring up a good point that, and again, it's why I started this podcast. Those family memories are so important. And when you think back, that's what you remember is the time that you spent with family. You don't necessarily remember every field trip that you took or every assembly that you attended in school. You remember those moments that were special with your family.
Yes. And also, I grew up in a family where my parents both read to my sister and me every night. And obviously, I took that for granted, and it was quite shocking to find out that other families didn't do this. And I think a lot of children's pleasure of reading comes from being read to. I live near my 3 grandchildren. One is just a year old, and he doesn't sit still too well for reading, but I babysat one evening last week, and I put him in his bed. He didn't want to go in his crib, and he was kind of trapped in there, and he said, their parents aren't around. I'm going to get him up and rock him. And I rocked him, and I read 3 books. Now, who knows how much he knew. 2 of them were my board books, so I like to think he liked those. But then when I put him in, there were a couple of whimpers, but he kind of looked up and smiled and went to sleep. And books are such an important part of childhood, even starting with babies in the crib.
Sure.
They love the physicality of the books. I only read more books to him because he's teething.
Yes, those that's a real consumable product, a board book.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about A Tree for Me. Who are we going to meet in this book?
We are going to meet a father and his son. Now, when Christopher, who is the publisher of Familias, he was very vague. He just said, I would like a book about trees, and I know you like writing in verse, and this book's doing well. But so as I started thinking what I would write, I realized there aren't that many books about fathers doing activities with their sons. And so I decided it would be a little boy going for a walk with his dad in the woods. And then, of course, I had to pick, when I chose the trees, it sounds like a simple project, but it had to be trees that would grow in the same environment, or the critics would have said, she put a mulberry tree in there and they don't grow near oak trees. So I did that. There was a lot of preliminary research, and then the story, it makes it sound mysterious, but it kind of revealed itself to me that the kid would go up touching trees and looking around, and then telling just a little of all I had to learn about each of these trees that would carry them through the forest. And turned out great. I mean, totally without ego, I love this book, and especially love the illustrations in this book. And at the back of the book, there are pictures of what the bark looks like up close and what the trees look like. So if a parent wanted to use this book as a learning tool, and that doesn't sound very parental, but and the other thing I did was, at the end, which I thought was very kid-like, was why we love trees. And very simple. Hey, number one, we wouldn't have oxygen. We wouldn't be here if trees weren't here. And I want to comment on the illustrator who lives in Spain. I never met her, and I was a little worried about how could someone whose native language is not English be able to illustrate this book. And she was great. So either she had a translator. They did say that they had met her at some book fair. They did say that her English was halting, but to a foreign illustrator, the thing is getting published in the United States. So I think they made the perfect choice.
Awesome. And that illustrator is Helena Perez Garcia.
Yeah. Yes.
Wonderful. Well, we should see if we can connect you. I've had the pleasure of interviewing authors and illustrators together, and it was the first time that the author and illustrator had met each other or spoken to each other. So those are real special. So maybe we can work some magic and make that happen for you and Helena.
That would be great.
Yeah. Trees are wonderful. I know I've mentioned here on the podcast that before, we had this beautiful oak tree in our backyard that unfortunately we had to take down because it was endangering our home. But it was just this magnificent tree that was so big, and we didn't realize how big and what an influence it had in the neighborhood until it came down, and we noticed all the other trees in the area had to bend in order to get some sunlight, and get out of the shadow of this big tree. And my kids and I, oftentimes we'd be out there at the base of the tree, reading a book together, looking up, imagining all the creatures that were living and calling that tree home. We had a tire swing on the tree for a couple of decades. And of course, it was one of the trees that my hammock hung from. So, and to this day, it's still my beautiful wife and I will oftentimes just say, oh, we miss that tree so much.
Well, you know what? I have a hammock in my yard, and it's between two oak trees. And down here, I don't even, well, if we have a big stormy time, I'll take it down. But so far, being rained on, not snowed on, it's still holding my weight. So I leave it up. But the most peaceful thing is to lie in a hammock. No music, no anything except the sounds of nature, and read a book that you really like.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yes. I had back at this time last year, I was touring the beautiful nation of El Salvador with a group called Clowns Without Borders. And one of the places that we stayed at was a retreat home way, way, way out in the country, in the mountains. And there was just like a garden of hammocks, swinging in the forest. And, I spent, 3 or 4 hours lying in that hammock, listening to nature and reading a book. It was a wonderful, wonderful time.
Well, I think one word kind of describes it: serenity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What is it that keeps you've created all of these wonderful books, over 100 books you told us. You're busy spending time with your grandkids. You're volunteering. You had been volunteering, getting kids out into nature. What is it that keeps that passion for writing and sharing literature with kids? What keeps that alive for you?
It must be in my DNA. I mean, I just remember the first poem I ever wrote, which I'm going to laugh, and you can laugh too, but it's what speaks to my heart. And my family always had cats, but just one cat at a time. And we had a cat, I don't even remember its name, but it was an inside cat, but spent the day outside. So it was an inside-outside cat. And it got run over.
Oh.
And of course, my sister and I were devastated, and my parents were, looking back, they were so kind. They buried it in the backyard. My sister said a little prayer over it, but it was still in me to work through this. So I'm going to laugh when I tell you. The first 2 lines of the poem are the only ones I remember. One day, when I came home from school, I found my cat in a bloody pool. And that's what had happened. Somebody had run over the cat with a car. We lived in a small town, a friendly neighborhood, probably did not even know it had happened. And it must have been earlier in the afternoon, so long, about 3 o'clock. My cat.
I love that. That could be, we're approaching Halloween when we're recording this. That could be the great start of a scary Halloween poem.
I don't know. I am going to enter a little Halloween poetry contest just for the fun of it. There's a writers group that puts out poems, and I have written Halloween books, but I've never worked that into it.
I'm curious, you've written books about trees and all sorts of subjects. Is there a subject that you haven't been able to write about yet that you'd like to before your career is over?
I'm reading all the time. I have been lucky enough to always have things kind of come. They don't come to me. You work very hard to get published. But my mind is settling on other things. So I don't know how to say this. I do have a new book coming out, and the title is in flux, and it'll be out next year. And I'll just say it's another nature book told from a different kind of point of view. And it's also by Familius, which is a great little independent publisher. It's been around for about 10 years now. So it's always nice if the people at the top like you, and if I have an idea, I can send it to them.
Mm-hmm.
And they have rejected some things. And Christopher always writes these heartfelt, "We're so sorry." And I said, "Christopher, you run a business. I don't take this personally."
Mm-hmm.
But I think I'm very lucky to have that relationship. And I did have an agent. I do have an agent. But we've kind of drifted. I had books published by some major publishers. And for aspiring writers, just let me tell you, it's often one and done with the big publisher because you just happen to have a book that fits a slot that they can fill. And after that, "Oh, this is so lovely, but I'm sorry, it's not," So that's what I like about Familius. I've written enough books with them that they know me by name and face, and we can talk about whether I'm going to write any more books or just pull out where is it? But here it is. For all of you aspiring writers, these are all the unpublished pages and pages of things I've written. And I know that there are people who kind of get angry and take it all very personally when they get upset. I never do. Just let it rest.
Right.
You have a whole different attitude when you pick it up again in 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. Great advice. And we love our friends at Familius. They were real great supporters of us when we first started back in 2017. And Christopher Robin has been on the podcast in the past. So,
Yes.
Yeah, we love them. We should tell everybody where they can go to find out more about A Tree for Me and find out more about all the wonderful books that you've written.
Well, www.carolegerber.com. Carole has an E at the end. And the book is on Amazon. Amazon just is, they seem to put things up and never take them down. I mean, I have some very old books that are still on Amazon. So, on the rare occasions when I get depressed about being in such a difficult business, I just Google myself. It's, I guess in a way that is egotistical, but it's not to say, "Oh, you're wonderful." It's that, well, someone knows you're still alive. Somebody's reading your stuff.
Well, we are happy that you're still alive, and we're happy that you were able to spend this time with us. We've had a great time speaking to the author of A Tree for Me. Our guest has been Carole Gerber. Carole, thank you so very much for being with us.
Thank you. This was a delightful conversation.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids and would join us for the next exciting episode of the show. Hey, if you love Reading with Your Kids, could you let folks know all about it? All of your family and friends would be great. And also, a great way to help the show and get people involved in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading is by leaving a review. 5-star review, preferably, on whatever podcasting app you may be listening to. We love the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, Spotify. We love them all, and we'd love to see a review from you. We want to encourage you to visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com, and also connect with us on social media, facebook.com/readingwithyourkids, at Reading With Your Kids on Instagram, and at JedleyMagic on Twitter. And, of course, our YouTube channel, youtube.com/readingwithyourkids. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Of course, we're going to start by thanking our guest, Ruth Spiro. Please be sure to check out One Small Spark, a Tikkun Olam Story. Also, want to thank Carole Gerber. Please be sure to check out A Tree for Me. I want to thank my incredible team, and they are truly incredible. Fatima Khan, Chris Doherty, Rory Grady, Rayling Tang, I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. And as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place. And you do that every time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.